Okay, good. So we'll continue on here with the text. Find a different verse. Yesterday was 6:15:16, I think. I'm just gonna check. Yeah. Okay. So why don't we try? Let's try this verse 645. Okay. So verse 645, Guru Vachaka Kovai. I'll read the whole thing as usual, and then we'll party on it. So verse 645 says, the import of the teaching, know the self, or know thyself, however you want to say it. The import of the teaching, know the self, is only giving up the elusive knowledge of the non-self. For bright like the true sun shines being awareness, as I am, in everyone. So that's verse 645. The import of the teaching, know the self, or know thyself, is only giving up the elusive knowledge of the non-self. So this is a huge nod to negation, which is essentially, I feel, the prime movement of definitely self-inquiry, but also Zen and Chan and Korean Sun Buddhism. It's a negation of what you're taking to be you. Essentially, that's the movement. It's not you're not trying to destroy anything. You're just seeing that what you're currently taking as you, the body and the mind, small m mind, you're negating that as what you are. So it's a putting down, or it's like there's a famous sculptor, I forget his name, but he would say, like, there's a piece of rock. You get the sculpture by taking away parts. You don't add things on. This is quite important. So essentially it's the import of knowing the self is giving up the elusive knowledge of the non-self. So by seeing what you're not, or negating what you're taking yourself to be what you're not, you can only land in the knowing of what you are. Because what you are, you're already that. The I am, the absolute awareness, let's say, that's done. That is your nature now. So the one who's trying to become that, the one who's trying to become existence, consciousness, bliss, and peace, that is negated here. We're not picking that up and putting it to work, let's say. There's not a bunch of J involved in becoming peaceful. It's more of a negation of what you're taking yourself to be, so you don't grasp onto that body and mind, and then you can only know what you are already, which is the big S self in this case, in the language of the Ramana school. So, the import of the teaching, to know yourself. The other thing that's important here is, he says, is only giving up the elusive knowledge of the non-self. Ramana said at one point, I think in the talks, in the annotation of some of his talks with students, the only requirement is essentially to see the non-self. The only requirement necessary is to see what you're not. Which, by the way, is what you see all day. The body and the brain. You're aware of all of the thoughts and the thinker and all of this stuff already. It's just being identified as it. You see from it. Yeah? So this is just pointing to the negation of that. That's what you're not. And then you can see the mental system trying to get out of itself through spiritual practice. Yeah. Is only giving up the elusive knowledge of the non-self. So, the reason the knowledge that that J is what I am is elusive is because there really is no independent thing called J. J is an idea that comes and goes. So, it's elusive, meaning the thought me or I presents itself as a permanent separate thing, and that's not the case. So it's an elusive self. So the idea that J is a permanent separate thing from everything else, which is being presented by the mental system constantly, there's a sense of individuality for sure. That sense is happening, yeah? We're not denying that that's happening. It's just, is that sense prove that there is a separate self? Or is that sense elusive in that it says there's a separate independent self when actually there is not? So, in this message, it's elusive. Also in Zen, it's elusive. Yeah? Or in Theravadan Buddhism, anatta, there is no self. There is no separate thing called J. That's really the release of the bondage of self, is to see that there isn't one. Like I hear sometimes, this thing came up yesterday, and this guy's talking about Zen. And he said the meaning of Zen is always being, doing what you're doing all the time. Yeah? To always be doing exactly only what you're doing. But my understanding of Zen is that there is no you who's trying to focus always on what you're doing. If you're always focusing on what you're doing, yes, that would be a mindfulness practice, no problem. It's a method of practice to settle down. But the thing is, the you who's focusing on that, that's what Zen is focused on. That's why Huineng became the sixth patriarch, because one guy said Zen is all about cleaning the mirror, yeah? And then Huineng said there is no mirror to clean. So Zen is really seeing that the one who's always focusing on what they're doing isn't there. And because it's not there, there's only nowness, because that would be your nature. But the one, the you who is always trying to do and focus on what you're doing, that is a coming and going. That you is not a permanent thing. It's always moving back and forth. So if you're identified as that you're constantly going to try to be focusing and stilling that thing. And the mental system doesn't still. They know that in recovery. That's why they say self-reliance will always fail you. Because from this message, there is no self there. There's no independent thing aside from a thought and an idea. There's a field before that, which in this they call the I am in everyone. That field of awareness is unmoving and ever present always. That's not trying to focus on anything. It doesn't have any. Your nature isn't trying to do anything. It's good. The nature's chill. Yeah? But the whole thing is, if you're always trying to focus only on what you're doing, that's fine to settle down the system. But the real investigation of both this and Zen is to see that the you that's focusing is not there as a permanent thing. That's the investigation. Then you couldn't care at all whether the head's focused or not. Because you see that before that, there's not a separate thing there. Yeah? As long as you're taking it to be that you are a separate thing as a sense of individuality, you're tied to the thoughts. That is a killer in addiction recovery. So at least in my understanding, the method makes sense. It's like listening to sound, but you're listening to sound only to turn down the volume of the individual so that you can negate or investigate to see if there is an individual there at all. Because if the sense of self does not prove, if the sense of self is not a fact to an individual, that you are in fact a separate individual, then all of the thoughts and things that come after that lose their weight. We would call that moksha, yeah? It's like the other day we were talking about like the thoughtless. Well, the brain is not thoughtless. It's a thought system. And it's always moving and it's always coming and going. What you are before that is thoughtless. So if you stop identifying with the body and the brain so much, then you sit back into what you already are, which is the thoughtless, and you couldn't really care less how many thoughts there are. Because you're always, you know that those thoughts are arising just to another thought called me. That's beautiful, yeah? So the import of the teaching, know the self, is only give up the elusive knowledge of the non-self. So the only requirement is to take the unreal as unreal, meaning not separate, yeah? So most people are living from the point of view of the non-self. So all that's necessary is to give up the unreal, the elusive knowledge of the non-self. But living as the non-self, that non-self is called me. So the body and the mind, which is probably trying to get out of itself through spiritual practice, it's attempting to get out of itself. If you're identified as it, that's always self trying to get out of self, which in recovery we know that doesn't work. Self cannot get out of self. The sense of individuality can only know the sense of it can't get out of that. Yeah, J can't get out of its J-ness. The point is to see that J is an elusive presentation of a permanent thing. So then you see that that's not where you start. And therein lies your freedom. You are the freedom from before that already. Great. Okay. For bright like the true sun shines, being awareness as I am in everyone. So being awareness would be like the big S self. That's your nature, yeah? As I am in everyone. So the I am, or being awareness, or your nature, let's say, it says in everyone, but the field of being awareness, we'll just use the language from here, or big S self, is not separate. It's not a separate field. It's not like when it's not like the language gets weird on that. But it's like the sky and the clouds, let's say. Our nature is the sky. One sky. And then the I thought and the body are like the clouds moving through. Now the clouds take themselves to be separate. Through the thought me being taken to be a permanent thing, not because you're doing that, but because it's presented that way. There's no other reason to look or think any other way, you see? So, if you identify as the cloud, you're living as the non-self. Seeing that you're not the cloud, by seeing that there is no individual thing called cloud, that it's a bunch of movements and ideas which are impermanent, which is no problem, by the way, but we're looking at the root of the thing here. Then you sit back into your skyness, your nature, your being awareness. That being awareness is not separate from other bodies, let's say. It pervades the whole shebang. That's why the text Elam Andre says all is one. All is one. Because nothing exists without the skyness, including the idea of the separate clouds. Great. There's a little bracket here at the bottom of this. It says, compare stanza 8 of the hymn of Dakshinamurti. And then it says, the individual I eclipses the heart sun in wakefulness. So, in wakefulness, which is right now, when the body's awake, that I thought will seemingly eclipse what you are as being awareness. So when the body and the mind are identified with as what you are, Nisargadatta would say your experience gets fragmented. But because of the attention going to the body and the mind, it seems that there's no sky there. It's all just cloudness. And that gets very claustrophobic in the individual experience. And then the cloud wants to become not a cloud. Or let's say it wants out of the cloud. Yeah? We would call that the cause of addiction. Whether that addiction be heroin, alcohol, or spiritual practice, that would be the cause of addiction. You take yourself to be a cloud, and immersed in the cloudness, the cloud wants to get out of the claustrophobia of the cloud. Jay wants to get out of Jay, essentially. But Jay can't get out of Jay. The point is, I'm not Jay. And then all of the life the cloud is getting from my attention put on it by it being me gets relieved. So the cloud loosens, let's say. Because the thoughts and the ideas only get life based on the idea that they're yours. Otherwise, they have nothing. Yeah? It's like thoughts that used to kill me, like the real killers, everything's my fault, for instance, would cause great depression, sometimes month-long binges on booze, yeah? Those thoughts don't land like that anymore, thankfully. Because they don't get the breath, because the life has been taken out of the me which lives before them. Because the me doesn't have any life. It only has life if I'm listening to it, you see? Shanti. So the import of the teaching, know the self, is only giving up the elusive knowledge of the non-self. Meaning what you're taking yourself to be, that ain't you. That's not where you start. That individuality only exists because of what you are. But from the sense of individuality, from the idea of me, it thinks it's God. That's why in recovery they say the first thing you need to do is stop playing God. Or Ramana would say that it's a false God. Because the mental system is labeling all of life. It's labeling all of life. Meaning it's playing God. It's playing God. Now it's not God, obviously, but it's playing God. And the more meaning that it puts on world, it's coming from all of the meaning that it's giving itself. So there's a big separation there between the sense of me and this world, yeah? And these two things are at ends. They're knocking heads, let's say. So the import of the teaching is that you only need to give up the non-self. Ramana also said the only requirement is to see the unreal. Meaning to identify what's not self-existent, which is all of J, and to not take that anymore as being a self-existent independent thing. To not grasp onto it. Yeah. Om Shanti. Okay. Beautiful. Maybe we'll hit on another one while we're here. Let's try. 668. Unless there's questions. Maybe we'll do that instead today. 668. 668. Oh, Noni, welcome. Melinda. Charles Frelai. I'm not sure what that means. I've been reading a Lem Andre. Oh yeah, Lem Andre is cool. Nice. It's like I've become the babysitter of me. Noni, who's becoming the babysitter? This is a cool thing. So now your head has gone from being here to now it's in view. Yeah? And then the mental system has now taken a new seat of I'm now the babysitter. So you're still on the me. It's just switched side. It's just flipped over. This is the duality. This is the duality of the mental system. The duality of the mental system is it splits off into these two things. Yeah, Melinda, what a relief. That's right. That's why we're here in the first place. Relief. That's like the gold coin of all of this to me. That's the only reason I'm doing these talks is because the relief that is given this life is unbelievable. And there's a lot of misunderstanding kicking around. Like, I'm going to get relief. I'm going to get relief. But really the relief that we're looking for is from the sense of me. That's the relief. And that's a real solution, meaning that it doesn't come and go, that relief. The me and all the thoughts and emotions and stuff, that comes and goes. But what you are does not come and go. So by giving up the non-self, what you're taking yourself to be, by opening your hand on that, you live in what's always present. Before the sense of you, you're there. You are the constant hearing of what you're not. Let's say that. And then your head will claim that hearing and say, I'm that, but you can hear that. Yeah? That is a super relief. I agree. I agree. But if I'm taking freedom to be that I'm always going to be present, that's going to cause a lot of suffering. Because the me who's always trying to be present can't do it. It's an anxious mental movement. It's just always moving. The same with the senses. The senses are always moving around grabbing. If I'm identified as those senses, I'm in trouble in the way of trying to really find relief. Yeah, because I can't stabilize it long enough. Can't hold it still. Tana. Okay. Can't figure out how to visualize all this. You're leaving the point. So the only question is who. Who has all of these questions, you see? This is not about figuring out how am I going to visualize all of this, or how am I going to go through my day with this understanding. This is not about that. That's all the head claiming this message and trying to use it as if it's some kind of tool. The only question is who. I can't figure out how to visualize. Who cannot figure out how to visualize this? I. How to go through how could I possibly go through with this understanding? What's trying to understand it? This is the point. That is the non-self, you see? So you stay on the question who. Who? I, me. Yeah? And then when the head tries to run away again, you just bring it back to the thought me. I. Now the message or the text will tell you you're not that I thought. But Ramana always says stay on the I thought. And then the head will try to run off with the message. It will try to run away with it. Okay, well, what am I going to... Well, who's worried about that? Who's worried about that? You know? This is the point. There's no call to action here. This is not... to me, this is not about understanding more or getting more. It's like Nisargadatta had this thing in one of his annotations where he said, when you come here, do you gain knowledge or is the knowledge you have being deteriorated? And the person says it's being deteriorated. It's becoming deteriorated. And he would say, yes, that's right. That's the thing. Because the thing that's killing us is the identification with the body and the brain constantly under its own anxiety of trying to run around, you see? So if you stay on the thought me, the only question is who's trying to do that? Who is trying to figure this message out? I am. Find that I inside of your body. See? The head will claim this message and go off with it. I don't understand. I got to do this. Okay, now I'm not going to do anything. This is all just mental stuff. This is all just mental. You could call it like anxiety. It's just the head is bouncing around. Yeah. Who? The answer is always me. This is why we share. If the energy of your nervous system and stuff is too energetic, the head will just take this and throw it into the blender of the mental system. Yeah. The reason that I really think there is so much relief in this message is because it stays only on one question. Who is listening to these thoughts? I am, and then the head will go off. Well, I am this about, no, who? Who's hearing that? It just sits the thing down, yeah? Who is the one who answers there's no me, you see? Is the I or me a fragment? You could say that, I suppose, Sam. But that knowledge is not going to give relief so much. Nothing exists without the space of the sky, or like the room you're sitting in. Yeah. The stuff in that room only exists because of the space in it. Well, the body and the brain only exist because of the space of the room itself. In Tibetan Buddhism, they use the word space a lot to signify our nature. What you are is not space, it's like nothingness, but it's aware of everythingness, let's say. But space is like the best word you can use. Space is like the best word you can use, you know? So there's nothing that's separate from that space. But the thinking mind and the me thought definitely thinks that it's separate from the space. Yeah. So that mental system thinks that that's all of you. The only movement here, if there was a movement, is negation. So what's being heard or what you're aware of, it's like this, like the text says, the only thing to do to know the self is giving up the elusive knowledge of the non-self. So when the head makes a move, you don't go with that. That gets negated as what you are. It's kind of like if you sit down and watch or listen to the experience, whatever you're aware of, you don't grab onto. You don't identify with, okay, I'm that thought. Or no, this one I am this thought. And then I am this thought. This is a negation, meaning it's like a very soft opening of the hand. Yeah. In like old Vedanta, they would say neti neti, or not this, not this. So whatever you're aware of, you see as not this, not this. But it doesn't take too long before you see that the one who's saying not this, you also not that, but without language. Yeah? Or in Korean Son, they use, sometimes they just use the word no. So whatever pops up in their experience, it just gets met with a very soft no. It's not like I hate the mind and no, I'm going to destroy it forever. It's not like that. All of this to me is very soft. It's very soft. Yeah. But the Ramana inquiry, who am I, which comes up in all kinds, especially the word who, in all kinds of different things, that really like keeps you back to the root. That keeps you inside the body, nice and low, so the senses don't pull you out, the this and this and this, you know. Mm-hmm. And then see what happens. But according to this, which would be considered like the handbook in many ways, or one of the few big handbooks written on this, the only thing that needs to happen is a negation. But trying to become something, like I am going to become Zen, for instance, to me that is a prison sentence of suffering. I am going to become Zen. Well, that me who's trying to become Zen, because it's a non-existent thing, it's going to be a long road for that to become still ever-present relief. It just won't work. That doesn't work to me. That sounds terrible to me, to be honest. I understand it as a method, but who is using the method is really important. So use the method until you can start to inquire who's doing it. It's like listening stuff. Listen to the sound of rain, until you can start to ask who is listening to the sound of rain and investigate that inside. See if you can find the you who's doing all of this. Yeah. Because that you who is doing all of this is the same you who's anxious or depressed or whatever, you know? Ah. Okay. Oh, I don't know. That's a lot there. This is this is all mental rumination still, yeah? If this is all true, what am I supposed to do? You see, who is wondering all of that? You've left the question already. You've left the question. This is why I usually limit questions now. Because the head will go off with this. It will go off with everything, but it will definitely go off with this. Yeah. The mental system cannot figure out the infinite, yet the finite mental system will definitely keep running. So the only question is who is wondering all of that? And then you're back to me. Yeah. So don't worry about all the questions. That's like chasing mice around a house. Come back to who is the one chasing the mice and see if you can find that in your body. Settle the system down. Search for the one. Who is the one? The mental system doesn't really agree with this message because the message is about the mental system. It's not for the mental system. It's about the mental system. Being identified as the one who all those thoughts are arising to has those thoughts really mattering, let's say. But if you chase the thoughts, your eyes are completely off the one who those thoughts arise to. This is why, yeah. If there's a method, I guess it's that. Staying on the question who. Who wants to know? Who's trying to get out of suffering? This, until the system quiets down. Or use something else. Friggin' focus on listening to sound or something until the system's quiet enough where you can inquire into it. Into the one. Yeah. Because it's only seeing that the one who's being presented as a permanent thing is not a permanent thing. That's the relief. That is the relief in my experience. Trying to figure this out as a mental idea is nonsense. Unless the inquiry is put into if the system is too loud to inquire into the one, do something else. Do listening meditations, do whatever you want to quiet the system down. 12 steps works if you're an alcoholic. Yeah? Do something else and then inquiry. If the system's too loud, do something to quiet it down and then inquiry. But the questions, the constant ruminating of the mental, let's say, is useless. It will just cause more anxiety. It's purposeless in many ways. Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow, I think tomorrow I got one of these on the little schedule there. Tomorrow we'll keep moving on with this stuff.